Okay, if you're watching this video, you've completed the graphics intro and you're ready to go on and learn more about graphics. So today we're going to learn about buttons. So we're going to start with a new class and we're calling it Shapeshifter. You can't put any spaces in that. And we're just going to keep it a class. Even though we're going to make it an applet, we're going to just leave it as a class. And when we go inside the class, into the code, we're just going to clear everything out. So I'm going to select everything and delete. And we start with some imports. So we're going to import java.awt.asterisk. We're going to import java.applet.asterisk. And we're going to import java.awt.event.asterisk. So those all have to be there. And I want to give a little description about what's going on. So our goal is to build an application with buttons that control a circle. So we're going to move the circle around the screen. Phase 1, the buttons will move the circle up, down, left, or right. So it'll be the first phase. So we're going to do all of that for that's actually what we're going to do today. Phase 2, we're going to add additional buttons to change the size of the circle. In the third phase, we're going to add buttons to toggle between circle and square and solid and outline. All right, so we'll actually eventually switch this over so we're not going to be just drawing a circle, but it's going to be a square, and you get to pick that. In phase 4, we're going to add calculations to report the current shapes, dimensions, area, perimeter. And finally, in phase 5, we're going to add we're going to do some fine-tuning. We've already added the calculations. Fine-tuning, which includes customizing the location of buttons, using labels to report calculations. Do not allow shape to move off the screen or have negative size. So it's going to make it a nice finished product. So that's what our goal is. And so now let's get to the coding of phase 1. So we're going to start with our class declaration. We're going to say public class shapeshifter. One word there, shapeshifter. Extends applet with a capital A. Implements action listener. So that's a little bit of magic code in the beginning. In time, you'll get a better sense of what all of those, what the extension means and the implements means. But for right now, it just kind of has to be there. And we set up for our class. And I want you to notice right now that if we compiled, we get an error. Kind of an obscure method, obscure message saying that our shapeshifter is not abstract and does not override, blah, blah, blah. So to fix that, I always start with the 3 methods that you need if we're going to be implementing the action listener. And so the first one is called init. So public void init. And we're just going to set this up for a later date. we're going to do a public void paint graphics G. And here's the big one. We're going to do public void action performed, and as a parameter, action event E. And just one change here, the action performed method has to have a lowercase a to start. And then when we set these up, our curly brackets, if we compiled, everything works. Okay, so those are the three methods that have to be there. And until they're there, the compiler will scream at you. So that sets up our class. So now we're going to add some variables that will go in before any of the classes so they're good throughout the entire class. So we're going to use, these are buttons. So we're going to say private button up, down, left, right. And we're going to do private int x, y, size. So those are our variables for phase one, because we want to have these buttons that will move our circle up, down, left, and right. Okay, so let's get our buttons onto the screen. So the way we do that is we go into the init. What the init does, the init method sets up initial screen for when Applet is launched. So the Applet launches, what are we going to see? We want to see these four buttons. So we're going to define our first button, and we're going to say up equals new button, parentheses, quotes, up. So this will display a button with the word up on it, indicating that we want to move the button, move our shape up. We're going to do up.add action listener this. A little bit of magic code, but what this does is it adds the action listener, which essentially gives us the ability to code exactly what happens when this button is clicked by the user. Okay, so that's what the first two lines are. And then the final line for this button is we add up. And what this does is it places button on screen in a logical location that Java determines. Remember, it's not till phase 5 that we're going to be placing the buttons exactly where we want them on the screen. In the beginning, when we don't specify, the Java does a pretty good job of placing them in a nice order, and you'll see that when we actually run it. So if we compile this, it's accepted all of our work. And let's just take a look at what would happen if we ran this. So we would go to our shapeshifter, and we go to our run applet, and you'll see our options here to run the applet in the applet viewer. We're just going to do that. We're going to say OK. And if I move this down into view, you can see that we have a button here that says up. Now I'm doing this on a Mac. It's going to look a little bit different on your screen from the PC in the computer lab. But you'll have a nice up button right on the screen. Now it doesn't do anything yet because we haven't defined anything to happen when we click on the button. But we have the ability to define it. And right now it kind of goes in and changes color. So it does something, but it doesn't actually, we don't even see our picture yet. So let's X out of here and go back to the code. We're going to repeat this process of creating a button for the 3 other buttons on the list. So we're going to say down equals new button, and we're going to have it say down. We're going to do down.add action listener this, and add down. Okay, so we did up, down, we want to do left and right. Left equals new button, left, left.add action listener this, add left. And then finally, right equals new button, right, right.add action listener this, and add right. Let's compile to make sure everything is good, and it is. Okay, so we've had, if we ran this, I'm not going to run it right now, we would see 4 buttons on the screen. Next up, we have to define our variables up here, the size, the X, and the Y. And these are what's going to really make our program be changeable, because so far we've coded shapes with really hard-coded values in. We would give it the actual, 30, 30, and that would be the position, or that would be the size. And now we want those to be able to vary, because we want to be able to move the shape around the screen. So we're going to start out with X equaling 150, Y equaling 150, and our size to equal 40. Okay, and now we go down to the paint. And in our paint, we want to draw a circle, presumably of size 40. And so we're going to stick with that size at the XY position, whatever that position would be. First, so we don't have just a plain black circle, we're going to set the color. We're going to do a g.setColor, color.blue. We're going to g.fill oval, x, y, size. And that puts our oval in the at the XY position. Now initially it's 150 by 40, or with a size of 40, but that's going to change once we program our buttons. In the next video, we will actually program the buttons, and we will be able to see more than just our single picture and our buttons that don't do anything. We will actually have working buttons.